What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to be doing a complete hero guide for one of my favourite characters in Star Wars, Princess Leia. This one has definitely been a long time coming, as I just needed to find the time to get some gameplay, and hopefully Iden will be next in line, as I know you guys have been begging for me to update Iden's guide in the comments, so that one should be out around 2 weeks after this one if all goes to plan. In these hero guides, we're going to be covering everything that could possibly need covering, from base stats, ability stats, the best star cards for Galactic Assault and Supremacy, as well as some of the best maps to choose them on, some general tips for those game modes, the best star cards for heroes vs villains and hero showdown, which enemy characters you need to look out for, and then lastly covering some general tips for the hero game modes as well. So as you can see, this guide is going to be breaking down every single aspect of the hero. If you are new around here and you end up enjoying this video, then be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Battlefront 2 content, and be sure to hit that notification bell as well so that you are notified each time I upload more videos like this going forward. But anyway, with that out of the way, guys, let's get stuck right into it. So getting into Leia's base stats, and she does have some of the better stats out there for a blaster user. Nothing crazy or anything like that, but overall her stats are definitely up towards the top. Starting off with her base HP, she has 650, which is the average for most blaster users, and as for how much health she can regenerate at once, she can regen up to 200 HP, which again is on par with most blaster heroes in the game. However, she does actually have a card that can make that even better. In terms of her damage, her blaster deals 40 damage to the body at range and 80 damage up close, and to the head it deals 76 damage at range and 152 damage up close. She then also has her alternate fire with the left trigger, and this one deals 145 damage at all ranges. There is absolutely no drop off at all with this one. Now her rate of fire is 340 shots per minute, which is actually a lot more than I expected, and keep in mind that is just counting one burst as one shot. For those who don't know, her blaster is actually a 2-round burst weapon. It just shoots both shots at pretty much the exact same time, so that you can barely even tell that it is shooting twice, but it does in fact shoot twice each time you pull the trigger. However, those fire rate stats are only counting one shot, so in a way she actually does shoot 680 shots per minute if you are willing to count both shots, but then technically her damage output is halved if you do it that way. She can fire 17 times before the blaster overheats, and again that is counting each burst as one shot. And as for the spread, it's pretty tight overall, but it does have some level of spread, unlike Han's DL44. Now moving on to her abilities, and she does have some really good abilities. Overall I'd argue she has some of the best in terms of the blaster heroes, which is quite a change from how she was at launch, because if you're a Battlefront 2 veteran you'll know that her abilities were absolutely terrible for about 2 years. Her left ability is the thermal detonators, and this just causes Leia to throw up to 3 detonators at her enemies. Each detonator deals anywhere from around 100 damage to 250 damage depending on how close they are to the enemy, and she actually has 3 that are available for use before it needs to cool down. It has a 15-second cooldown, which is definitely pretty good considering how much damage these grenades can deal if you make the most of them. Moving on, we have her middle ability, which is called Rapid Fire, and this one causes her to whip out an E11, which has a crazy rate of fire. The ability lasts for 8 seconds if you do fire it for the entire time, or 25 seconds if you activate it and don't shoot a single shot, and it can deal up to a whopping 350 damage per second if you can hit all of your shots, which is obviously not going to happen every time, but if you are accurate, this ability absolutely melts. This one also only has a 15-second cooldown, and considering how good it is, that is a very, very good cooldown time. Now for her right ability, we have this squad shield, and this is exactly what it sounds, causing Leia to place down a shield on her location. It can actually take roughly 3000 damage before breaking, which is quite a lot when you think about it, and you can actually heal slowly when you're inside the shield as well, which was one of the final features that was added to the ability. This one has a 20-second cooldown, which is really good considering the cooldown actually starts even happening when the previous shield is up. So technically speaking, you can essentially have a shield activated at all times unless the one you just put down gets destroyed super fast. So that is it for all of her base stats and abilities, and now we're going to move on to some tips for Galactic Assault and Supremacy, starting off with her best star cards. Keep in mind these cards are just a matter of opinion. There aren't really any loadouts in the game that are objectively the best or anything like that, but these are just what I find to work best in these modes. The first card I recommend is the High Spirit card, and this one just gives Leia up to 100 added health regen. Now a lot of people say you don't need this because her shield can obviously heal you, and that is very true, but it just depends on your own playstyle in my opinion. For me personally, I play a little bit too aggressively to make the most of her shield, and so for me this card really helps when it comes to staying alive. The second card I'd recommend is the Relentless Firing card. This one makes it so that her rapid fire ability lasts for up to 55% longer. That adds on roughly 4 extra seconds worth of active time, taking it to a total of 12 seconds of active time with only a 15-second cooldown. So with this card equipped, you can almost use rapid fire half the time that you're alive, and considering how good it is, that is a no-brainer. The third card I'd recommend is the Stay Together card, and this one makes it so that when you're within 15 meters of 2 teammates, both yourself and those teammates will gain 10% damage reduction until you're no longer within range of those 2 teammates. If you stick with teammates for most of the match, then that essentially means you have nearly permanent 10% damage reduction. Considering there are 19 other players on your team, it is actually pretty rare that you're going to be all alone, and so this one is great for holding the line with your teammates. Now, a fourth card that I personally don't really use, but I can't deny how good it is the Laser Brain card. Now, this card makes it so that your alternate fire becomes a one-hit kill, which can be really useful, but unfortunately a lot of people just equip this and then sit at the back of the map spamming it. Funnily enough, the card has a perfect name for what it does, because if you play like that, then you are in fact a Laser Brain. But no, it is a pretty decent card to use. Just please don't sit at the back of the map. You're doing absolutely nothing to help your team. Now, moving on to the best maps to choose her on in Galactic Assault, the 3 maps that I personally think she's the best on are Geonosis, Hoth, and Endor. All of these maps have a great mix of long ranges as well as short ranges, and for Leia, I think that is really important to her game because she does really well at all ranges. So on all of these maps, you can sort of chop and change the areas that you're in, which generally helps you stay alive a lot longer. Now, moving on to some general tips for Galactic Assault and Supremacy, and as I mentioned with one of her cards, Leia is a really strong character to play with her teammates and be more of that sort of team player. Not that she can't deal a ton of damage and do well on her own, but playing with teammates due to the Stay Together card and her shield and all that, it does go very well with her playstyle. She isn't so much a genuine objective or team-based hero like Finn, for example. Finn's abilities almost all suit the team more than himself, whereas Leia can definitely deal some damage with her abilities, so it's mostly about finding that middle ground between playing as a team while sort of still playing that Slayer role where you're obviously trying to get plenty of kills. If Finn is a genuine team-first hero and Han is a kill-first hero, then I'd probably say Leia is pretty much right in the middle of those two, if that makes sense. She's got that really good ability to deal damage and get kills like Han does, and then some team elements with the shield and her Stay Together card, and so that's really the best way to picture how to play her, being that sort of middle ground between those two different styles. One of her biggest strengths overall is her ability to do well at essentially any range. Her Defender pistol is a beast at close range to mid range, and it can still hang at long range as well, albeit with a bit less accuracy, but then rapid fire allows you to be truly dominant at close range, and her alternate fire, which allows you to be pretty dominant at long range, and so she's kind of got that good mix of distances, which not all that many heroes actually have, and I think that is definitely one of her biggest strengths. With a hero who's only good at close quarters, you can kind of get in trouble if you're in a long range area of the map, or if you need to sort of fall back from those close quarters areas, and then with a hero who's only good at long range, they obviously struggle a lot more to move into those close quarters areas, meaning you're in a lot more danger when you try and move through the map. With Leia being well suited to both ranges though, it not only allows her to do well in all areas, but if you find yourself getting pushed really heavily in the close quarters gunfights, you can just fall back to a longer range, and those enemies who were doing well at close range won't be able to do well anymore, at which point you kind of gain back the advantage. And then same goes for the opposite situation. If you're getting outplayed at long range, you're lucky enough that you can just push those enemies and dominate them in close quarters, so it really allows you to keep moving around the map and sort of hold your own in each area, which obviously helps a lot for getting kills, but it also helps for just staying alive as you don't really have any dangerous areas. To summarize, Leia is best used as sort of the middle ground between a team-based hero and a Slayer type hero, so try your best to sort of balance between both playstyles. And in terms of the ranges of engagement, be sure to try and keep moving around the map and fighting at all different ranges, as it will help you to stop being targeted, as you can do well against anyone at any range, whereas most troopers and even heroes can't really do the same back to you. So now moving on to the hero versus villain game modes, and she's actually a beast in these modes. I personally think she's one of the best on the light side, and I think she's somewhat underrated by most in the community, but I know a lot of you will agree that she is absolutely unreal if you do play her properly. Starting off with her star cards, and the first card that I'd recommend is the High Spirit card that I mentioned earlier. That added health regen really helps stay alive longer and help keep those streaks going, so for me this one is a no-brainer. The second card I'd recommend is the Rebel Heart star card, and this one makes it so that when you're using rapid fire, you'll take 25% less damage. Rapid fire is absolutely unreal at trading damage with Saber heroes, and so if you can save that extra 25% health, generally you can 1v1 any Saber hero without pretty much any trouble at all. The third card I'd recommend is once again the Relentless Firing card that I mentioned earlier as well. The added time really helps helps against blaster heroes when they're at a distance, and the amount of times that I find myself winning gunfights just because of those few extra seconds is actually pretty crazy. So for me, these cards are always the go-to in these modes. Now, as for heroes that you need to look out for, I've once again only put 2 here, and they are Vader and Count Dooku, for the same reasons that I always mention. They both just deal so much damage and are so tanky with how they play that anyone in the game should be wary of them in these modes. But if you do play it right, you can definitely outplay them. Now, finally moving on to just some regular tips for the hero game modes, and honestly, Leia might be probably the most straightforward hero in the game now that I think about it. She really just needs to send as much damage downrange as she can, which she absolutely has the ability to do with her detonators and with rapid fire. And so honestly, she is pretty simple to play, and I don't really have that many tips. Maybe I'll do a Heroes of Villains breakdown for you guys if that is something that you are interested in. I do have 2 small tips to give though. 1, don't use her shield too often or in close quarters areas anyway. The shield is actually more helpful to enemy saber heroes than it is to you, because they can sort of hide inside it or on the outside if you're hiding in it, but then they can attack you when you're close to it, yet you'll just end up shooting your own shield if you attack them back. It's not useless by any means, but just be wary of where you place it, and if a saber hero pushes you, then get as far away from it as you can. Secondly, her alternate fire obviously deals damage through blocks, so be sure to make the most of that. If an enemy is just block spamming, it'll cause them to panic and generally they'll rush you, and then if you just actually activate the rapid fire and try to melt them, they generally won't even think to block your shots back at you most of the time. So use that alternate fire whenever you are in kind of a stalemate with a block spammer. To summarize, you just want to be sure to always be putting the pressure on by using your detonators and rapid fire, as well as making the most of the alternate fire, and then try not to overuse the shield, as it can actually be more of a detriment if you're not putting it in the right places. But that is going to do it for this one though, guys. As always, a massive thank you to my channel members and my patrons for the continued support. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel as well, then be sure to check out the Patreon page that's linked down in the description. If you enjoyed the video and it did help you guys out, then be sure to leave a like down below to support the channel, and be sure to subscribe with those notifications on so you don't miss out on any more Star Wars Battlefront 2 content. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.
Crush them! Make them suffer!